You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver. Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, Jarrod Randolph. Jarrod, welcome, buddy.
Pleasure, my friend. Glad to be here.
So, Jarrod, tell us a little bit about you before we dive in. I'm excited to talk about entrepreneurship and just networking, and I've got lots of thoughts on here and questions. So let's introduce the audience to you, and then we'll get rolling.
Awesome. So I have been in real estate for over 25 years now. I started at the wee age of 16. So if this real estate stuff doesn't work out, maybe I could be a barista at Starbucks. That's about it. I've done a couple things throughout my career, mainly in New York City, sold over $2 billion in real estate, raised over $300 million in capital, started some SPVs, which was supposed to be a private equity fund. That's a long story. It didn't happen, but we got some deals done with my institutional partners. Was on Forbes 30 under 30. I'm on national news, whether it's Fox or MSNBC, Cheddar, Schwab, talking about real estate, but also now talking about business as I've transitioned into a new chapter in my life where my main focus is, aside from my real estate portfolio, working with entrepreneurs who are seven-figure entrepreneurs who want to scale to the next level, to that 8-9 figures. And I'm helping them do that through capitalizing on the relationships and the Rolodex that they've built over their successful careers.
I love that. Okay, so let's start there at that last part, because you've heard, it's not cliche, but your net worth is equal to your network. And I just played this golf course on Sunday here, and the initiation is $1 million, right? So, and you can't get in, right? So, there were 9 rounds on Sunday. That's it. So you don't run into anybody. They know you. They know your names of your guests. They know. It's just pretty amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I asked the head pro, well, like, who are some of the people that are playing? And it was 3 of the people I recognized as billionaires, right? So it's interesting because when I was young in my career, somebody said, "Hey, join the most expensive golf course that you can. That'll let you in," right? And that made a big difference. So tell me how networking and with the right people, but also, or not the right people with more money than you, right? Mm-hmm. And how that helps an entrepreneur, and just some of the things that you've seen over the years with that.
That proximity creates access. That access gives you the knowledge to unlock the doors to all of the unspoken things in the marketplace. So to your point, the cliche is that your network is your net worth. That's BS. It's absolutely not true. It's your ability to activate your network, which is your net worth, because all of us have thousands of contacts on our phones that we never pick up and call when we need a resource. We're raising capital. We're looking for a JV. It is a graveyard of tens of millions of plus dollars because we don't actually know how to make the ask or make that connection. And the core people that we have in our lives, and we've talked about and heard about and been taught for years, those core 5 people in your life are the ones who have the biggest influence. Whoever gave you that advice, sage advice. There was a guy, a podcast I was listening to, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he started the silly bands craze. And I think he became a billionaire and did all these other products. And he said that one of his mentors told him when he was young, you should go work at the nicest country club that you can work at as a caddy.
Yeah.
Just because you overhear the conversations, you learn, you start to understand that culture of people who are super successful. And that is what is going to help drive you forward. That knowledge is absolutely invaluable. And that's the difference between people who are super successful and people who struggle to get to that next level.
So let's just talk about these people, these super successful people. And I've got a couple of business partners. I've got a couple of friends that are billionaires. I always tell people, because in the neighborhood I live in here in Florida, there's a lot of people that we call them previously important people. They're retired, but they want to tell you all the great things they did when they weren't retired, right? and they want to tell you how much money they have.
Mm.
Hopefully, none of my neighbors are listening. But Jarrod, that's not really how super successful people operate, is it?
No, it's not. You know, you have to realize that the ones who are quiet in the back of the room, a lot of times are the ones who have had the most success. They've had the most success. They're also the most comfortable in their own skin. They don't have to showboat. They don't have these little egos, which is typically the loudest voice in the room. And they're the ones you want to attach your star to, especially if you're a younger or aspiring entrepreneur. You find those people, they become your advisors, they become your mentors. This is all part of a concept that I call buying favor. And if you break down the definition of buying favor, it's like buying favor in the eyes of God, buying an exchange favor an act of kindness. So it's an exchange of kindness. And we all do this. We all want certain things in our lives. And the time that we invest in people and places and things will have a huge impact on our ability to achieve that next level of success and continue to level up. So you have to make sure you're aligned with the right people and pick those who have been successful, but watch out for the egos because that really can get in your way.
I totally agree with that. The ego part of it is, and I don't know what book it is it's in, but ego is edging God out, right? Like,
Mhm.
the ego part of it is funny because, um, just like you said, there's one guy in particular that I know, and I think he's probably worth 7, 8 billion. And if he were sitting here with us today, you would have no idea. And he doesn't want you to have any idea, and he doesn't really care whether he has, he doesn't care what you think, right?
Yep.
And but then there's other people that want to give you their resume when you meet them at dinner or at a dinner party or something like that, and they give you their whole background, and it's like, oh wow, cool. But you
Mhm.
never know who you're talking to.
Right.
So especially in Naples, Florida, they always say if you think you're old or rich, you're neither. Just come to Naples, right? And there are people that we had a house sell for $230 million. So
Wow.
it's a different market, but
Right.
people like to talk about that. I kind of feel like those farmers in the Midwest, and they act like they have no money whatsoever, and you're like, oh, that person owns more land in Nebraska than blah 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 blah, and they're a billionaire, and you would never ever know
Yep.
it. I like those people. I don't like the people with the egos. But let's go back to something that you said. Is I'm always advocating for people that if you want to get into real estate,
Mhm.
then surround yourself with people who are successful in real estate,
Mhm.
whether in, like you said, mentorship, if it's buying businesses, if it's growing your business. I mean, that's the way that I learned how to run businesses. Is I was a financial advisor, and I worked with blue collar people in the millionaire next door kind of blue collar millionaire people,
Mhm.
instead of the doctors and lawyers and everybody that acted like they had all this money, right? The
Right.
welding shop that was making $1 million a year net, and nobody would ever know. Um, I learned about business from those people, right?
Right.
Bad, the good, the things they struggled with, the mistakes they made. And so then when I learned to go buy a business, I already had in my head these things. So
Mm.
talk about, if I'm sitting there right now and I have some 9 to 5, I don't care if I'm a
Mhm.
doctor or I'm a customer service rep.
Mm.
How do you help people step by step kind of break out, start to develop their entrepreneurship, or do you only work with people that are already doing like 7 figures? And again, that's great too. Taking somebody from 7 figures to 8 or 9 figures,
Mhm.
and maybe their goal is a buyout, whatever it is, right?
Mm. So, what we work with around our operating system, because buying favor is an operating system, and it, by the way, it plays out in no matter what your income bracket is, whether you're super successful or you're somebody who's getting started. Mainly, we work with seven-figure entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their businesses. And the
Mhm.
reason we do that is because they already have built-in leverage, but these are still rules that apply to those who are trying to get to that next level. And the problem, which I'll speak to it today, that someone who is a W-2 employee might be making 100 to $300,000 a year, and they don't know what the next best step for them to take. and they're afraid to go out and get advice from someone where they could lose their savings, you have to
Hmm.
tap into your network. And your network includes your friends, associates. So those are people on the professional level, vendors, organizations, and relatives. It just happens to spell as an acronym favor. So it's part of your buying favor network, your friends, associates, vendors, organizations, and relatives. So when you're ready to take that next step, instead of fearing the unknown, finding the course online, going to that guru who's in the rented Lamborghini, pick up the phone and call the people who are within your network, in your favor five. So there's got to be at least 3 to 5 people in each one of those categories that is doing what you want to do, that would be happy to give you the advice that you need to get to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And you said something really important. And I tell people this all the time, but I don't know. Sometimes I like the line that people need to be reminded as much as they need to be educated.
Yes.
And it's nobody's ever asked me for help that I've not said yes. And I just spent an hour on the phone last week with this young guy, and his job wasn't going well. And he's got this goal of buying laundromats.
Mm, mm.
And I said, "Do you know anybody that owns a laundromat?" And he said, "Yeah, actually, I know somebody, one of my dad's friends, that bought and sold a couple laundromats." I said, "Start there." Right? I mean, I've never bought and sold a laundromat, so like I could tell you kind of what I think, but if that's what your vision is, that you're going to own in Texas or Indiana or wherever it is, that you're going to own 50 laundromats, I'm not going to tell you that's a bad idea or a good idea, but find somebody who's done that,
Yes.
made a ton of money, and how they did it, and avoid some of the mistakes they made, and ask them for your help. There's no successful person in the world, if they truly are successful and
Mhm.
they know what they're doing, they will help you, and
Yes, sir.
especially if they're in your network, like you said.
Yes.
I love that.
And what you have to realize is that, especially when you're already a successful entrepreneur, if even if you're like, oh, I'm only doing $1 million, I'm not successful because your aspiration is $25 million. You're a successful entrepreneur
Right.
compared to the majority of people out there. Most of us do not need to meet anyone new beyond this point right now where we sit today. We just have to learn to connect the dots looking backwards, and the people who are behind us, who know, like, and trust us, who will support us to drive our businesses to that next level, whether it's a 2, 5, 10x. And you have to go out and make the ask, because what we realize is most people don't know what we're doing. We have
Right.
no idea what we're doing. I'll give you a story. I was talking to a buddy yesterday. We were catching up. He'd been traveling through Europe, haven't spoken for 6 months. And on that call, because I'm a master connector, it's one of my favorite things to do, even if it's just to help someone else. A buddy of mine is doing a development project around real estate and wellness in Bali. And I said to my buddy Nate, I was like, Nate, you know anybody who would invest in real estate and wellness in Bali? And he goes, as a matter of fact, one of my buddies lives in Bali now, and that's what he's doing. And he created a wellness club. Send me the deck, let me forward it to him and get his thoughts on it. So you don't know, you have to make the ask, and the majority of people are willing to help you. And if
Yeah.
they're not willing to help you, be cautious. And
Yeah.
especially if you've already added value to that person, because there are laws, there are principles within the laws of reciprocation when you're building really high level relationships. And one of the cores is to give, then you earn the right to make an ask. But be
Hmm.
careful with that ask. You don't want to throw those asks around frivolously. You want to make sure that you're actually, especially when you have a high value person, you make a high value ask and you align their interest with yours, then everyone wins at the end of the day.
I love what you said about value. The I was talking to somebody who was a prospective client, and she had never been in business, and she said, "Well, I don't want to be like that business owner that's just all about profit," and like she just kind of was negative.
Mhm.
And she said, "My mom, she was at this mobile home park, and it had." Potholes, and it was like really run down, and they're really jamming people in there just to maximize their profit. I was like, whoa, you've got this skewed look on what a business owner is. I said, well, why don't you buy it, fix all the potholes, have a Christmas dinner and a Fourth of July celebration, and make it more of a, I mean, like, why can't you like get that vision of how to make it better,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And people are always looking for things that they're passionate about. It could be something small like that. Her mom lived there, so then she wanted to do that.
Mhm.
Um, the little motivations that people have and entrepreneurs have, it's interesting because you think, well, how'd you get into that? And people tell you the stories, and I know you've heard it a million times, but I'm always surprised by the stories, and I'm like, oh, I got it. Like,
Mhm.
I'm in the trash business because my adopted father drove a trash truck, and I thought, if I don't do well in school, I'm going to be driving that trash truck.
Right.
And so that was, and I remember my son struggling one year in high school, and his grades weren't very good, and he said, Dad, I guess I'm going to be like driving the trash truck. And I said, son, if you're driving the trash truck, we're going to own the company, so
Yeah.
don't you worry about it.
Yeah. Yes.
And so, like, it's those things. But you know I think the old school way of like competition, people
Mm.
think that they're in competition. So talk about like competition and collaboration
Mm.
and how successful people collaborate and they don't worry about competition.
So there's a podcast that I actually did, and I've become really close with the guys who run it, and they've done over 300 podcasts. And what they're doing right now is they're teaching people how to invest in real estate. They have a course that they're selling. They want to get it out there even more. And a lot of people that they have on the podcast are in different facets of real estate, and they have followings, etc. And I said to him, I said, "You've added a lot of value to these people, and you have good relationships with the people you've had on your podcast, correct?" I said, "Yeah, for the most part." I said, "Now, if you want to get in front of a bigger audience, do you believe that maybe just 5 to 10% of the people that you've had on your podcast, you could pick up the phone, call them and say, 'Hey, we're working on this. Could we get your support on launching our class and getting it to a bigger audience in your audience?'" They're like, "Yeah, potentially." Well, guess what? They did it, and they had an overwhelming response from the people that were willing to support them to get the message out about the course that they were selling. And these are people who are also in real estate. They might have been in different facets of real estate, but it didn't take away from their business helping these guys build what they're trying to build because they've added value to them prior to. So they gave, and then they got the right to make the ask and to align with these people who became ambassadors for them. They're adding value to their community with another investment structure, and everybody wins in that situation. So we have to get away from thinking that we're constantly in competition, because there's more than enough consumers out there, and there's so many that 99.9% of people couldn't even take all of them on if they were to get all of them.
Right. So you bring up something interesting because I think sometimes if you create enough value, you don't even have to ask. So let
Yes.
me give you an example of like just a referral, right? Some people would always say, "Here's a referral system, right? Here's how you get people to give you referrals."
Hmm.
And they would say, "How do you feel about the work we've done so far?" Blah blah blah. You've heard all of these things, right?
Hmm.
And so, what I believe is that you create enough value, people want to refer you. Like, let's say that you went somewhere tonight for dinner,
Hmm.
and they had a $39 steak on there, but it was better than any $100 steak you've ever had.
Hmm.
And the service was better, and they knew your name when you walked in the restaurant, and
Hmm.
they knew where you like to sit. They knew, I mean, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, this dinner was only a couple $100, but it felt like it was $1,000." You'd
Yep.
be telling everybody you could today, tomorrow, for the next week, right?
Everybody.
That talk about like how you create that environment in your network to where everyone, yeah, wants to help you, and kind of around like sharing your vision, sharing your passion. Talk about that.
So this is actually something that we're doing in our cohort right now. We're helping these entrepreneurs kind of focus on this exact thing, and in terms of becoming a center of influence. You become a center of influence by connecting the dots for other people first and foremost. You add value to them because you automatically become aligned, and they become aligned with you once you've added value to them. As they say, the most interesting conversation someone will ever have is a conversation about themselves. So you're not necessarily just talking about them in a room, but you listened to what they're working on. You listen to their desires, their needs. You've listened to whether that's personal or professional, what they want to accomplish. And then if you come back a week, 2 weeks, up 6 months later and go, "Hey, I was thinking of you. I had this great conversation. This actually happened with this new firm that I'm working with, which is a wealth management firm. There was a group that I met when I was in Newport. They have a really cool, ultra luxury senior care facility that they're building. I had spoken with this wealth management firm that I'm working with. They want to help their investors find creative outside of the box investments. I thought that this was one. I put the two of them together. They're now looking at making the investment into this $89 million capital raise that they're doing. I don't get any value of that. I don't have a horse in that race, but doing that showed that these guys are top of mind. Now I've bought the favor with them. They now feel like they want to reciprocate because they're already like, well, what can we do for you? I don't know. I didn't do it because I necessarily wanted something from you. I was just adding value to people in my network. But now I know you're in my arsenal. And the day that I might need help, even if it's just some intellectual mind share, like, hey, dude, I'm having a challenge with something. I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Can we talk? They pick up the phone, and that's the type of relationships that start to move the needle. And we all have those already in our Rolodex. We just have to learn how to capitalize on them.
So I love what you said there because there's a lot of people that are in business. Let's say it's an online business. Let's say it's like a company like Createlin who's teaching people how to do infinite banking.
Yes.
And they say, okay, we want to talk to more and more people that are going to put 100, 500, $1 million a year into their infinite banking system.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they go and they say, okay, I'm going to spend 50 grand a year and I'm going to join this mastermind.
Hmm.
And it's going to be other like-minded people at these masterminds. We're going to have these weekly meetings. We're going to once a quarter or twice a year or whatever it is, meet in person and drink too much, eat too much, and sit around and listen to other people talk, right?
Yeah.
And and then they go and how many connections do they actually make?
Masterminds are BS. Let me let that sink in. Masterminds are BS unless you do this. You've got to have a strategy.
Yeah,
And that strategy, when I go to masterminds, because I went to masterminds and I stopped going to masterminds. And now I'm starting to go to masterminds again because I now know how to capitalize on a mastermind. If it's a 2, 3 day mastermind, second day, third day that I'm there, I'll book a room in a local restaurant with 10 to 12 seats. And the people that I've met throughout, I will hand pick them and say, got a little dinner going on. I want you guys to come join me and just get to know each other. You again host the room. You be the one who's a person of influence where you create your own sphere in there. And then the people that you met afterwards, follow up with them. And it has to be within a 2 week period to say, we go to these masterminds all the time. You meet a ton of people. We all pass cards, but we don't actually keep the conversation going. I really liked what we talked about, which was XYZ. Let's find some time to catch up and see if there's synergies in our world. That means the biggest difference. The problem is with masterminds, most people who are running masterminds are doing it because they're collecting a check. I'm just being
yeah,
very frank because that's
yeah.
been my experience. They are not doing the follow up afterwards to make sure that everybody is connected. That is your job to do it. And granted, it might seem like a big check to write, but if you know how to extrapolate value, it is well worth it. I mean, the last few masterminds that I have been a part of, there were absolutely some duds that I even was like, dude, this person can't be in here. What they're selling is crap.
Yeah.
But the other people that I met, we've done millions of dollars in deals together because I have a relationship operating system, just like everybody's got their operating system like EOS, their financial management operating system, their marketing and sales operating system. You have to have a relationship operating system because everything revolves around relationships. It's
Totally.
people, everything. We come from a man and a woman. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for that. And then every step of the way, we met somebody, whether they encouraged us or they discouraged us, they drove us to where we are and to be who we are today. We have to be grateful for all of that because it was meant to be and to build the person that we are today. So, what does
I
that
love
mean?
that.
We
I love
have
what you
to
just said.
capitalize.
I love what you just said about having the system because there's somebody in my organization that I want to introduce you to that is kind of our head connector in charge.
Awesome.
And he's struggling a little bit in that role. And so I'm already so for me, for everybody else in the audience, how do I learn more about what you do and how I get involved in the different options?
Awesome. So the best way to get involved is first and foremost, follow me on social. My Instagram, I'm putting out content that adds value to my network on a daily basis about networking, building better relationships, making the ass, etc. And my IG is Jarrod, Jarrod _guy, GUI, Jarrod Guy. And you can hit me up via email at hello@buyingfavor.co. So buyingfavor.co.
I love that, man. I love what you're doing. I love that you're passionate about it and you're knowledgeable about it. Every single question I asked you, you didn't say, "Oh, that's an interesting question," and think of an answer. You already had the answer in your head. So I know you've done this before. I can tell you're obviously know what you're doing. An
Thank you.
audience, that's what I look for. Is I look for somebody because you know what? Everything that I've learned is I take from people that know what they're doing, and
Yep.
it's who, not how. I
Yep.
don't know how to do what you do, and so I know somebody in my organization that needs it. So, and if the more they connect with people, the more money the company's going to make, the more money I'm going to make, the more money they're going to make, and
Yes.
it's a win-win-win. And I totally agree with you with masterminds. I see people go, and I see people waste time,
Hmm.
and I'll give you a perfect example of one that couldn't deliver, and then we'll move on. But is there was a guy that got up on stage, and this dude was ripped, right?
Hmm.
And he was like, "We are concierge health coaches. We will get everything that goes into your body. We will order for you. The food will show up at your door. Your workouts will be this. Your supplements will be this. Blah 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 blah."
Hmm.
I was like, wow, that's what I need, right? I need systems. I'm a vision guy, so I need the system to be in to fill in below me, and I knew what I wanted to do, and so I signed up. They didn't deliver any of that.
Mm.
I mean, it was like, here, get factor meals. I'm like, what? No, I don't want to eat that crap. Like,
Hmm.
like nothing wrong with factor meals, but I didn't want to just microwave all of my meals, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
wanted somebody to come prep for me, like, and now I have like a chef that preps my food,
Yep.
and so, but what it did is it made me realize what they couldn't deliver. I still really wanted.
Hmm.
I just had to create it myself
Hmm.
and I didn't create it and start selling it to other people. I just did it for me. But like the people that can't deliver kind of give that mastermind a bad name. But you have a master network
Hmm.
in your Rolodex, like you said in the very beginning. So start there,
Yep.
right? And as you get into masterminds, have a system of what you're going to do, right? You wouldn't just call somebody and say, "Hey, you ever heard of infinite banking? Are you interested?"
Right.
you know and so that wouldn't be a very good system. All right, so Jarrod, I love what you're doing. I
Thank
love the
you.
passion. Like I said, I'm in for I'm going to make the intro to you and this person in our organization,
Awesome.
and I want to learn more about what you do. So wrapping up, we got the contact that'll all be in the show notes. Audience, reach out to Jarrod, because if you're trying to build what he's talking about, whether you're a 7-figure guy or that's your aspirations to be 8, 9, 10, whatever, is that's how you do it. You have to be able to network, and you have to be able to provide value. So, Jarrod, with all of that great advice and all that great knowledge, somebody had to give you some good advice along the way. So, what's the best advice anybody's ever given
Read.
you? I love it.
And I'll tell you, there's a little bit, it's a little bit deeper for me about the reading. So it was one of my mentors who told me years ago, read, and I didn't for a very long time. Now I read about 2, 3 books a week. However, I suffer from dyslexia. So the only way that I have learned to read and to absorb content, remember what I was reading, stay awake, and actually enjoy it is I use multimodal techniques where I listen to an audible, I read the book, I have a pen or highlighter in hand, I mark up my books, they look messy. But because of my dyslexia, I also hear better at a higher speed. So I can read a book at 2.5 to 3.5x, comprehend and retain more than most people can just reading a book by themselves. And a lot of higher education institutions are starting to teach their students to read this way, which I didn't even know. It has changed my life because every single thing that you need to know, it's in books.
Yeah. So you know what I love about what you said about that? You haven't heard this story, but some people in the audience have. but I didn't read a book going through high school. I was a terrible student. I didn't read a book. I have the same thing. And it's so funny what you said, because I'm going to tell you my system here in a second too.
Awesome.
But I remember a guy who was a janitor. Okay, I was
Mm.
running the Gold's gyms in Kansas City,
Mm.
and he was the janitor. Why I would listen to the janitor, I don't know. He seemed like a smart guy, and he was also in Amway, so he was trying to sell me Amway,
God,
but
yeah.
then he was the janitor, right?
Uh-huh.
And he said, Jim, if you read an hour a day on any subject, in
Mhm.
6 weeks you'll be an expert.
Mhm.
Now, Jarrod, I don't even know if that's true. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's true, because what it did, just like you said earlier in the interview, is it motivated me
Yes.
to read an hour a day, because I wasn't an expert in anything. So I thought, I want to be an expert. So I started reading an hour a day, but I struggled with reading, and I struggled with retention. And we didn't have Audible back then, but what I do the same thing. I don't do it. I probably don't do it as fast as you, but I listen, I read, and I take notes. But here's the next question, because this ties into what you do,
Yes.
is I write down questions. I send those questions to the author. I used to do it back when I would send it by snail mail.
I love that.
Everybody responds. Bob Berg with the Go Giver, everybody responds,
Wow.
right? Like, because he had one of the most thoughtful responses to my questions. So then all of a sudden, now, Jarrod, what do I have? I have a relationship with the author of that book, right? So back to your system, right?
I'll give you one little anecdote that this has
Yeah.
actually moved the needle for me, and I'll make it very quick. It's called the FedEx method.
Okay.
If you want to get in touch with somebody who is a prominent individual, use the internet, find their office, send them a FedEx.
I love
Simple
it.
letter. I want to connect with you. I admire what you do. May I take you for a coffee? May I meet you in your office? You're going to be in Kansas City doing a speaking event. Can I grab 15, 20, 30 minutes of your time before you go on stage? I'd like to connect with you because of X, Y, and Z. Do not sell them anything. Do
Yeah.
not pitch them. You are not allowed, and you can't. But I'll tell you what's the differentiating factor there. Snail mail, to your point, an envelope or a letter can go in the trash. A FedEx has to be opened by them or by their secretary. It is
Mm-hmm.
a way to get in front of people that you could never imagine getting in front
I love that. I love that. I might get in that country club after all, Jarrod, that you're
of.
talking
You got this. You got
about.
this.
That I was telling you about. All right, Jarrod, last question. If God came down from heaven and allowed you to only retain the knowledge that you received from one book, and by the way, since you read so much, it could be one, two, or three, what's the one book that you'd want to retain the knowledge that you've read?
Okay, this will be layered, but again, it will be
Yeah.
quick.
Yep.
First and foremost, every single thing we need to know, and I am not preaching anything here, it is in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's in religious text. I have a great book that I read every morning, which has a Bible passage in it by Sarah Young called Jesus Calling. That has actually helped me develop a relationship with God, and that's a newer thing with me. But the reason I'm saying that is we read all of these books about mindset and how to treat people and connectivity and business, and you really read the underlying message, they come from religious text. And a lot of religious texts that date back thousands of years are very similar. Now, if we're tying it into business, and I like to keep things super simple because mindset is really important, but also relationship building is really important. I love Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich
Mm-hmm.
as a just a core book, but the listen to the message. There's two messages. The way that you move the needle and become incredibly successful is your mastermind group, okay? People who are like-minded that you help each other grow and progress in business, and your board of advisors, because every allegory that he tells is based around your mastermind group and your board of advisors. And that's how those individuals built the massive success that they have today. That's what we focus on in our programming for our relationship operating system.
I love it. I'm going to give you a book too, just based on what you
Please.
just said about faith being something a little bit new. So there's a book called Outwitting the Devil. It was written 100 years ago by Napoleon Hill, and it wasn't published till like 10 years ago. And it there's a version on Audible where the devil has a different voice. For some reason, it resonates for me, Jarrod. But basically, I'll give you something from this book. Is he says, it's the author interviewing the devil, and he says, "Are you going to tell me everything that I need to?" And he says, "I will tell you everything honestly, as long as you address me as your highness." And he was like, "Why would I call you your highness when God is the king of the universe?"
Okay,
he said 97% of people on earth follow me, so on earth I'm the king, right? Now I'm just telling you, so like this is what he says. So you think, well, wait a minute, that kind of makes sense, right? But he says, in this, all I have to do is distract you. All I have to do is this to get you under my control, right? And so you're going to love that book. I know you will.
I am. So I'm just telling you, this is divine intervention, because not only has someone else told me that, I ordered it. I ordered that also with a Napoleon Hill book called How to Increase Your Salary, which is supposed to be like absolutely incredible. His with JP Morgan, his interviews with him, and how he really built his fortune. But Outwitting the Devil, I'm trying to find it on my bookcase over here, and I don't see it. It is going to be my read for this weekend, because you're the second person who gave that a shout out. I'm absolutely going to read it, because I know it's over there somewhere.
You're going to love it. It's going to help you coaching people and helping people. And I love that you're doing that, man. And so, audience, I've already told you I'm going to reach out to Jarrod. So go to Jarrod's social media stuff, check it out. And if it resonates with you, contact him and see if it's a good match, because that's what it's all about. It's just like what he's saying. If you don't reach out, then then you can't possibly get it. So how do you know unless you know? So the biggest thing in my life is I'm not afraid to swing the bat. So Jarrod, thank you so much for being on the show and talking about mindset. Audience, we're going to wrap this up like we always do with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and the strangest secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.